Last time I checked, I was still a kid. Childish, childish, this all freaks me out a bit. Childish, oh shit, how can I parent when I'm still a kid? Childish, oh shit, who the hell decided I was ready for this?
Hey, I'm Greg Fitzsimmons.
I'm Alison Rosen.
And later on, we will have a gentleman named Johnny Henson on.
That's right. John Henson from Talk Soup, from Wipeout, from various Food Network things. I think he hosts some cupcake content.
And he was on the TV Guide channel for very many years and a couple movies. He's worked. He's a journeyman and a great stand-up. He's worked for a lot of years as a stand-up as well. Yeah,
and he has 2 kids, and his daughter has the same name as you. And he's been on my podcast a few times, and people love him, and he's very funny and nice. And also, he likes to talk, sometimes some would say too much, about his sex life with his wife. But I love someone who's open like that.
Well, you're not going to hear it from me, Alison.
Not going to hear what from
I
you?
don't talk about that shit.
I know. I'm always saying to you, Greg, you need to be more honest and vulnerable, and you need to just put it out there. And you're like, no, boundaries are boundaries.
I feel like it would be a violation of my wife.
Do you ever feel like if you had healthier boundaries, it would make for less interesting podcasts?
Well, I like to think the boundaries come first, but I happen to have very loose boundaries with my wife. I'm not violating them. You know, they're like, she's a Jew from the Upper West Side of Manhattan. They're a very like open culture, you know, it comes from an intellectual Jewish family, and there's nothing that shames her or shocks her. And she also supports what I do. By the way, has never listened to Childish, I was going to say, never listened to Fitzdog Radio, rarely comes to my stand-up shows. She's like, go do your thing.
I was going to say, like, this all sounds great, this story that you're telling about her, but if she were to really know what has been shared on this show, do you really think she'd be okay with it?
Doesn't give a shit. She does not.
I want to marry her.
Yeah, I know. I would do it all over again.
It's beautiful. So I had a little parenting rite of passage this morning.
Oh,
Elliot is 3 years old, and he called me, so to speak, on my bad language. Daniel and I we try to limit the bad language just because, you know, kids repeat stuff, but we haven't gone overboard because it hasn't really been a problem. But anyway, I was pouring his cereal this morning, and the drying rack is like loaded. It's like a house of cards with bottles and bottle parts. So I set something down, and then like a whole bunch of bottles scattered. I was not really paying attention. And then Elliot goes, "What'd you say oh gwit for?" And I was like, what's he asking? I'm just going to ignore him. "Mommy, what'd you say oh gwit for?" And I'm like, and he goes, like, "Oh gwit, you made a mess. Oh gwit."
It's almost like you know how in print when you have to use different letters for a curse word?
Yes.
Mommy, why you say hashtag at
right.
IT?
Right. Why do you say $$C dash? So anyway, I guess I need to stop saying oh gwit.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big topic in my family because I'm a big believer in not cursing in front of the kids. And my wife has always, again, being from this family, it's just always been like they curse.
My family always did too.
Yeah. So
wait, now, sorry, why do you think you shouldn't?
Because I don't want to normalize it. I'm a big believer in cursing, and I curse during my stand-up, and I curse with friends. But I feel like kids are going to curse enough anyway. Mm-hmm. And why not make sure that they use a curse as colorful language as opposed to a fart, a brain fart, where you go, you know, I'm going to fucking whatchamacallit. That's just
like
just cut out fucking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't want them to get too comfortable with it, but now they are.
It was interesting because I wasn't even aware that I had said it. So that was the wake-up call for me, because I didn't I thought I was just making cereal and got frustrated, and I wasn't aware that it had escaped my mouth. So
You should have just turned and yelled at him and said, "Don't ever say quit." And let that be the curse word that he acts out with when he gets older, and then you're totally safe.
The one other time that it happened was my parents gave him a gift, and he opened it up and he went, "What the hell is that?" And we all laughed so hard. And I knew immediately that we are reinforcing this, but we just couldn't help ourselves.
Of course.
So, yeah, my parents allowed us to curse, similar to Aaron's family. And the only but I was aware that like there's the language you use outside the house, then there's a language that you use inside the house. And then a friend of mine from school was over, and she talked to her parents on the phone from my parents' kitchen, and she's like, "They let us say, and then listed all the words. And then I remember my mom having to get on the phone with her mom and have a little talk.
Yeah.
Like, well, and I don't know. So I forget what happened after that. I think after that, then they became even another level of like, you can say what you want at home, but not everyone's parents feel that that's okay. So, and then I don't know, it's probably better to just try to not use the language so that the kids don't have to have all these different rules for different situations.
Yeah, I don't know. I grew up where you did not curse at all in the house. And, but I sometimes wonder if my house wasn't too, it was very strict in a lot of ways. Like you didn't curse, and you came to dinner on time. You had to look presentable at dinner, and I don't know. There was a lot of things like we didn't talk about sex. There's a lot of things that were very like uptight, and so I try to open up to that a little bit.
Do you remember how you learned about sex? And I ask because this recently came up in therapy. And I cannot remember. I don't remember my parents ever sitting me down. I remember when I was like 4 or 5, my cousin mentioned something about a penis and a vagina. And I remember having the thought, oh, I guess that would fit. But it was completely disconnected from anything. And I don't know how I learned.
My mother, who grew up the youngest of 6, dirt poor in the Bronx, and both parents from Ireland, and they were very, very, very uptight Catholic. And so my mother said to me, she sat me and my brother down, and she said, "It's time to talk about the birds and the bees." And we were both like, oh, God. And she said, well, the man puts his penis in the woman's vagina, and then they have a baby. Don't ever tell your grandfather that I told you that. And so I had this in my mind, and I'm young, and so then I was probably about 12, and I was over at my friend David Aranguren's house. He was from Colombia. He had no mother. His father was raising him, and his father was an alcoholic who worked as a maitre d' at Beefsteak Charlie's. And so their house was like, they lived in the projects downtown, and so we were in his apartment above Los Americanas, which was the bodega where we used to buy our beers when we were like 13. They would sell you beer. And so we're upstairs, and they've got a reel-to-reel movie projector, and his older brother, Hector, is playing a porn movie. And I'm watching it, and my eyes are like this, and it wasn't kinky even. It was just like a guy. I remember exactly what it was. It was a guy on top of a woman having sex. Like it looked like a one-camera shoot. I remember it was really simple. And I was watching it, and I was like, this is some crazy kinky shit. He's moving it. My mom just said you put it in.
Oh, right, because you thought it, you just...
Yeah. I thought it was, like putting a quarter in the payphone,
Right.
And so then Hector, the older brother, who was probably like 18 or whatever, he started grabbing my dick, and I had a hard on, and he's going, "Hey, you got an erection. Hey, look at this guy." And like at the time, I didn't know that was molestation, so I was just like, "Oh yeah, cut it out,"
Right.
So it was all very complicated. That's how I learned about sex. And Hector
did you
later went to prison for 20 years for selling cocaine from Colombia.
I was going to ask, did you feel that he had violated you? Or was it more he was mocking you?
I felt mocked and I felt confused. I felt really confused for a little while. That was like a few days of like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of things as a child that you think that sex is, I remember announcing to my parents, you guys did it, because that was the lingo. You guys did it 3 times because my sister, me, and I knew that my mom had a miscarriage before me. But I had no idea that this was a thing that happened regularly.
Oh, my God. Yeah, it is weird when I think of, well, we'll talk about it later in the podcast. I wanted to talk about, it's Mad Max now in my house. I realize, like, we've hit the point in the quarantine where the wheels have fallen off, and we need to get out. I realized this. It was last night, and I realized as my daughter is sitting there, she dyed her hair blood red. She did her own bangs, and they're like this. And then she gave Owen she's got this tattoo marker, and she gave him a really bad tattoo.
It's temporary or something, right?
Could last a year.
Okay.
And it's really bad, and she did it in like 15 seconds.
What is it of?
It's of Calvin and Hobbes. And I go, what the fuck, Owen? Why are you letting her do this? And so I got him in a chokehold, and I was trying to choke him out because he's 19. He can take care of himself. But I'm trying to choke him out. And then he stands up, and he hooks his leg behind me, and he pulls me up in the air and body slams me. But I don't let go. I'm still chokeholding him until he will tap out. And my daughter's yelling at us, and I was like, we need some social distancing. we got to get out of the house a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, full disclosure, I haven't seen Mad Max. Can you from your story I'm gathering what it is, but can you explain the reference?
There's no gas left. I mean, it's all marauding. It's bands of marauders. And so it's like everybody for themselves. There's gangs of people, and there's just no rules, and there's a lot of heavy metal playing.
So it's like what people thought at the beginning of this pandemic that it might turn into when everyone lined up to get guns, but then it just turned out that everyone was going to bake bread and there'd be no toilet paper.
Yeah, right.
I myself am finding that I am ready to just be like, I'll take a risk. I'll take the risk. I don't know. Like, it's hard. I'm having trouble adjusting to, well, now we're lifting some restrictions. I guess I'm kind of an all or nothing black or white person where it's like, I don't know. Like, should I go get my pap smear? And if I'm going to do that, then can I also see friends? I realize there's a lot of illogic in that statement, but I don't know. Like, are you guys changing the rules for yourselves right now?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's like there's some things you're allowed to do that we haven't been doing that I think we're starting to take. Like yesterday, we went over to a friend's house, and they have this beautiful deck, and they're really into their garden. They have all different kinds of like California succulents and jasmine and beautiful trees they put. And it was a gorgeous day, and we just sat out, socially distanced. We wore our masks. We sat for like 3 hours, and it was just like the most amazing. And I was like, why aren't we doing this? We're allowed to do this, but you get it into your head that, no, we have to like stay home.
Right.
So
yes.
I think you're right, though. As they start to ease up, you really don't. Like my son went bicycling with some friends, and my daughter goes skateboarding on Sundays with her friends, and you just think, but then the next day they want to do something else, and you start to go like, no, it's got to just be a little bit. It can't be.
I feel like that's almost harder, though.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's so nebulous. Yes, I had a friend came over, and we sat in the front yard like 12 feet apart and talked and caught up. And then our friends Izzy and Jordan drove by our house, and they stayed in their car, and we stayed on our driveway, and we talked. And both of those were so, like, such a shot in the arm. We felt so much better afterwards.
I know.
But then but like with my sister and her family, they've been been strict about their lockdown. So I feel like, well, couldn't we just see them? Couldn't we let the kids see each other? And she's like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's safe yet.
Yeah.
Which I guess is true. Like I don't know. It's just, it's tough.
Well, I think we're going to see. There's a few states that are really letting people out. And I think in 3 weeks, we're going to see a spike. And I think the question is going to be, how big is that spike? And how much will that inform how far back we have to pull to where we were before?
Right. It's really hard to figure out how to make a decision and to figure out what level of risk you're comfortable with, because the risk might be low, but it's hard to be like, it's worth it. I might die, but it's worth it. Nothing is worth dying for, but you can't live your life stuck in your house all the time. I don't know. I'm just spinning in place. There is something that I think we should address, which is for a little bit of time, we are going to go every other week because shit is crazy right now. And I don't have childcare.
We got to give you a break. Yeah, you're doing a lot more childcare than you were. And I've actually got some work, which is good. I got some work I'm doing. And so, and then we both have 2 other podcasts, and we just think for the time being, we're going to take a little hiatus from it. And then we'll be back. We'll be back every week.
Right. Not a true hiatus, just an every other week hiatus.
Yes, we're still there for you.
We're still there for you. So if you have not listened from the beginning, I know a lot of you have though, but go back, listen from the beginning, look at our beautiful faces on YouTube, and listen to Alison
Rosen. I believe you can
Rosen's
go back to the beginning, right? We don't have any kind of a limit on how many you can watch. So we've been doing it for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And they're evergreen. They're not usually about topical stuff that much. We do a little bit of news, but that's not the whole show.
Kat, listen throughout me giving birth to O2.
Right.
Throughout Greg getting magnets put on his brain.
Back I had hair when we started this.
Oh my God. How we have changed. Greg.
Speaking of our people, should we do some voicemails or some emails? What do you want to do before we bring John Henson on?
Well, I want to tell you about Panda. Looking for some fun.
Oh, yeah. You told me you were going to tell me about this.
I know. And now I'm going to tell you about it just like I told you I would. Looking for some fun activities to do with your kids at home right now? Check out the Princeton and NYU Discoveries in Action Lab, or PANDA, a virtual lab where researchers hope to discover how kids learn about the world. PANDA offers quick and fun online games for families with children aged 3 to 15. Participate from your home computer anytime, and as a thank you for contributing to science, you will earn a $10 Amazon gift card. Head to www.discoveriesinaction.org and sign up. To find out more, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Discoveries in Action. All right.
Sounds like a nice deal. Pick yourself up a little do-re-mi and help out science.
What do you think we should do? We could do voicemails or we could do emails.
Why don't we start off with a couple emails?
Let's do it. Hang on one second because there's something we have to hear.
What?
You wrote?
All right.
This comes from Robin in Alhambra, California. Alhambra. I like to say that.
I say Alhambra.
Oh, maybe I'm not saying. All right, now I don't like saying Alhambra. I like saying Alhambra.
Alhambra. Oh, that's fun. I'm going to say it that way.
It's fun, right?
Alhambra.
Yeah, it's like saying Nicaragua instead of Nicaragua.
Alhambra. Like it.
Hi, Greg and Alison. I once worked for a largely... And just to give you some backstory on this, we did a news story about names that were illegal in a lot of countries. Like you can't name your kid Hitler in Germany. There's a bunch of them. So I worked for a largely Chinese company, and one day when I was reading the list of employees, I noticed there was someone named Shark based in the Chinese office, in the China office. I mentioned to my coworker that I thought that was an odd name. And she explained that it wasn't his real name because that name was inappropriate for use in the U.S. The original name? Shart.
Yeah, that's not good. You don't want that name.
Shart is one of the truly grotesque. It's like queef. It's like, it sounds like what it really is.
It does. It's got a bit of onomatopoeia.
Yeah, it's got some onomatopoeia. And so yeah, I would if I found that out, there's no way I'm not calling that guy Shart from now on.
What had he changed it to?
Shark.
Shark. Got it.
Yeah. This one comes from Kristen Rills. She was also talking about the band names, and she worked in college at Walgreens, and there was a customer whose name was Prince Wales, Wailes, Prince Wales. One day, I was helping him, and he was picking up a controlled substance, so I had to ask his ID. Guess what Prince's middle name was?
I give up.
What initial? O. Prince O. Wales. If you haven't guessed already, this was an older black gentleman. Yeah, Prince of Wales.
So that means that POW was POW was his initials.
That's right.
That's good.
I had a kid. I just remember this yesterday. I was just telling my my wife. There's a kid who goes to my that goes to my kid's school, and his name is DeMoney Butts.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
That is a solid name.
Yeah, that's a very cool name.
DeMoney.
DeMoney.
Like
Butts.
D apostrophe money?
I'm not sure.
I love it.
Yeah. And he's
DeMoney
apparently
Butts.
a very cool kid. And then
Of
there
course
was a
he
kid,
is. Can you imagine if that was like the outcast nerd, DeMoney Butts? No, that kid has got
No.
to be cool.
Yeah, he's cool.
He's
And then I went to school with a black kid when I was growing up, and his name was Prize Funk.
That's also a cool name.
Yeah. Unless there's a vaginal smell contest.
Yes.
All right.
Under a
And
voice.
then
Oh, yeah. Do you
here's-
have another email?
there's one more I want to do just because I think it may be too big of a question. No, I'm going to save it because it's a big question.
I feel like I would have won that during pregnancy.
Prize Funk?
Yes. Now,
What do they-
some people said that my sense of smell was just sharper because of hormones, but I
Yeah.
feel like I was in the running for a prize funk.
Yeah, and what's the trophy for that?
It's just
You
a
put-
can of tuna.
Can it?
It's a pregnant lady holding a
Trophy
can of
stand with
tuna.
Yeah, right.
It's a trout. All right, let's do a voicemail.
Yes.
Hey, Alison. Hey, Greg. I've been listening to both your shows for many years. Alison, your show as well as when you were on the Adam Carolla show, and Greg, saw you in San Francisco a couple years ago and listened to your show for years. Anyway, I heard Greg say that he and his family were planning to go to Cuba, and curious how that went because my wife and I were also going to go to Cuba. Our flight was canceled, but it was like playing chicken with the airline, trying to see who would cancel first, and then if we could get a refund, which we did. But I hear it's pretty complicated. Curious about how that went down for you, as well as how that affected your family's psyche, not being able to go on vacation. So, love you both. Hope to hear you again soon. Thanks. Bye.
We were scheduled to leave for Cuba on April 8th. So, as you know, things were really shutting down by then. And it wasn't going to happen. Plus, I knew Cuba's pretty good about, as most communist countries are, about keeping diseases at bay. As a matter of fact, when AIDS hit Cuba, they set up a quarantined hospital, and anybody that had it, they put in there. And Cuba famously never had AIDS. And so I got a pretty good sense they were not going to let us in anyway, or they were going to make us quarantine for 2 weeks. So it got canceled. And it really sucked because, my kids both speak Spanish, and we had really read up on the culture. I read a couple novels. My wife grew up in a family that was very much in lockstep with the communists in Cuba. Her dad actually had a relationship with Fidel Castro.
Was her dad blacklisted?
Yes.
Wow.
And when he went to China, when he went to Israel, they took his entire computer apart at the TSA.
Wow.
Yeah. He wrote a book against the state of Israel, called them fascists. And so anyway, we were very upset. We were really looking forward to it. And then we're supposed to go to Ireland the first week of August. So we still don't know if that's happening. I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure we're not going to Ireland either. So we hadn't traveled in a couple years. So this was like our big year where we were going to go do stuff. So, postponed. Can't wait. We'll still go.
So are you getting a refund, but you're just going to postpone it and reschedule?
Yeah, they refunded everything.
Okay.
But, Joey Diaz, who's my good buddy, he's got family there, and his his aunt was going to pick us up at the airport, and we were going to stay with them for the first couple nights.
Oh yeah,
And
you
he's got a
mentioned.
cousin who's in a band in Cuba, and he like runs the town. He knows all the nightclub owners in Havana. He was going to take us out clubbing, and our kids are old enough to drink in Cuba, so it was going to be wild times.
Yeah, you'll still get to have it
We'll still get there.
someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am really itching to travel. And I had vowed that I wasn't going to travel with Owen at this age, because when we flew with Elliot around this age, it was a true nightmare.
Yeah.
But if it were safe again, I feel like I would hop on a plane.
Yeah, you don't have to go far, but God, to go somewhere.
Yeah. Although, I saw someone on the East Coast, they went to an Airbnb in the Catskills. And that seems like a reasonable, like you're not contacting any other human being. That seems like a reasonable thing to do, maybe.
I think the next trip for us might be getting a Winnebago, piling the kids into a Winnebago, and maybe going up to the Pacific Northwest a little bit, through Canada, maybe go to some of the big national parks. That would be fun.
That sounds really nice. Do you keep your passports up to date? I don't even have passports for the kids. It's smart.
Yeah, you got to do it.
Yeah.
On top of that, because now like these offices are so backlogged.
Right.
You should probably try to get it now.
Yes. All right. That goes on my my mile-long to-do list. We have another one. Let's listen to that.
Hi, Greg and Allison. This is Kelly calling from Arkansas. We just found out last week that we are pregnant with baby number 2. So if there is going to be a quarantine baby boom, we will be contributing to it. So we have a 19-month-old and now one on the way. And I was just wondering, you always hear people joking, or maybe not joking, about how baby number 2 is, kind of not as special as number 1. They get all the hand-me-down clothes. You don't do the baby book. You don't watch them as closely, etc. So I was wondering, in your experiences, was that the case with baby number 2? And what can we do to make sure that the anticipation for and the arrival of baby number 2 is just as exciting as baby number 1? So that's it. Love you guys. Love the show. Thanks for listening. Bye.
What do you think?
I don't know. I think that didn't really land with me, because I feel like it's two different experiences. And I think that what they may lack in being over lavished with attention is the experience and confidence that you bring to a second kid that they benefit from. It's like making pancakes. The first batch is a lot of work. There's stirring, there's measuring, there's all that, and it's
Right.
and
you
it's
throw
okay.
it out. You throw the first one out.
You throw it out. The second batch is the one you want to eat.
Yeah, I do. With Elliot, we were aware of the most incremental changes in development week to week. With Owen, I would forget how many weeks old he was, but he, I think, was he was a more content, easier baby who had a better mom than Elliot did. So I think you just accept that it's going to be different. They won't know any different, and they get to grow up with a sibling, which is great, and they get more confident parents, which is great. That being said, now that Owen is over a year, Elliot still gets way more attention because he's just older and he just demands more attention. So I do feel guilty that Owen, I feel like, always just kind of gets the leftovers, but he seems totally happy with it.
Yep. They'll figure it out.
Yeah. And congratulations.
Yeah, that's great news. Keep us posted.
I don't know about you, Greg, but I think it might be time to bring in our guest, John Henson. Wait, but first there is something I wanted to mention, which is call us. Call our voicemail line, because we need your voicemails. And a more on top of it person would have had the number right there. But, oh, nope, that's not it.
Just give your cell number.
That's on the bathroom walls. Okay, call us at 805-317-4243. And if you ever forget this, just go to our website. It's got the contact info right there, childishpod.com. Okay, let's bring in our guest. Welcome to the podcast, John Henson. It is very exciting to see your face. Now, I understand that the face I'm looking at is a little more freshly shorn than it was. And I know this because I follow you on Instagram.
Yeah, it got a little out of hand. I've never really grown a beard before, and as you get older, it just starts to get like Fuzzy Pumper Barbershop, man. It starts to get sort of You got to be careful as a suburban dad, because if you have short hair and then you start to grow a big beard, it can cross over into sort of an alt-right Proud Boys look very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, especially when your face is shaped like yours. You have a very Aryan kind of and an air about you of I am better than others.
Yeah, it's like a smugness and superiority, which I'm sure
Yeah.
TV Guide has mentioned before. But then also,
Look, I'm sure that a lot of your listeners have taken their AR-15 down to the state capitol to protest their First Amendment rights. I think that's all very common thought.
Right.
happens.
You've earned your liberty, and you need to exercise it now by killing other people.
It's what our forefathers intended.
That's right. I know. Do you know that I just read that Washington had chicken pox, malaria 4 times, dysentery. He had like every fucking disease, and he manned through it.
Yeah, right. Had it while he was like marching through a river on the way to fight forces that outnumbered his.
Oh yeah, they weren't talking about his ash rash or his hemorrhoids. I mean, sitting in that saddle day after day with no showering. Think about that.
No teeth. They had to fashion teeth for him just so he could chew something,
Right. Yeah.
so
He was a badass.
you guys have a couple things in common. You both have daughters who share a name, I believe. And did you guys go to college either together, or you both went to the same college?
Yeah, we went to the same college, although we didn't really meet until after I had left school. You actually stayed and got a diploma, right?
I stayed and got a diploma, and I also took over your spot in there was an
that's
improv
right.
troupe. Boston
Yep.
University had an improv troupe.
Oh,
and
what
this
were they
is
called?
Before colleges didn't have improv troupes in the late 80s. This was like, this was very different. And you guys, and I believe you were like a founding member, weren't you?
I was, yeah. We started a group in like 87,
Yeah.
called Uncontrolled Substance.
Get it?
Yeah, very
Oh,
kid
God.
clever title. And I believe, I'm not sure. I mean, I know as of like a few years ago, they were still around.
Wow. Yeah, we did it. I took over John's spot. He auditioned me, I believe.
Did I really?
I think I had to audition for you and Vesna Maris and a couple other people.
Yeah.
I grabbed her tit once when I was drunk, and she just laughed. So that's the closest I've gone to a Me Too movement moment in my life.
Yeah, she might have Me Too'd you right back. She was a salty girl.
We Too. You call that a We Too.
No, it was a lot of fun. I mean, there was a guy named Mark Rosewater who had started that group. We referred to him. We gave him like a Broadway Danny Rose, old school Hollywood nickname. We called him Woody Rose. Yeah,
Woody Rose.
Yeah.
He was very funny. There was a lot of really talented people in that group. And and then I did it. We started getting paid gigs. I was such a hustler. I would go to all the clubs and I would try to get us gigs. And the only one I could get was like way the fuck out on the edges of Cambridge. There was this this Greek restaurant, and it was filled with real Greeks. Like they barely spoke English, but on Wednesday nights they would give us free food, and we would perform. And I think like $50, and we would all take the red line out to the last stop. And we would, on Wednesday nights, we would do improv, and we had to do almost all physical stuff because they didn't understand English.
Yeah, we did regular shows in the student union. I think they were like Fridays at 2:00, and they were going so well. And I remember once we did a show at night at 9 Lansdowne, like the nightclub.
Wow.
Like it was stupid. It was like in between bands or something. And I just remember that we got our asses handed to us. It was such a stark realization of the next few years of my life and career when I dropped out of college, because it was like, we were doing great. And then we went on in front of like drunk people, and they were just like, you suck,
Right.
Give me a location. Your mother's ass. It was that kind of thing.
Right.
So, John, how are you doing during lockdown? Greg, I'm going to talk for you. He's feeling gloomy about the state of his career in stand-up comedy with a few potential bright spots. However, he's happy to have all this time at home with his kids. I am losing my mind because I have 2 kids under 3. How are you doing?
By the way, like, moment of silence, let's pour a little out on the sidewalk for Alison Rosen, because 2 kids under 3, I mean, that's hardcore.
Yeah.
We almost caved last week and decided let's have our nanny back, because the reason we stopped having her because she has roommates, and even though I really trust her, I felt like, well, I don't know what the exposure level is. Let's not be stupid about this. And her roommate has been sheltering in place and hasn't been going into work. So we're like, we could have her back. And then the night before, I texted her and I said, you know what, let's just wait a little bit longer. And she actually seemed relieved. So then I'm like, well, wait a minute. She said something about like, I just hope this pandemic is over soon. I'm like, wait, I don't want to wait out the whole pandemic.
Right, yeah.
So, wait, I just spent a few more days.
Yeah, this is a snooze alarm. I want to revisit on Friday.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard. I feel like it comes in waves. I feel kind of, well, yeah. All right. I guess I will share this. So I'm sober. So I feel like I'm kind of well suited to this, like just sort of accepting what you can't change and just living in the day and surrendering to all this stuff. And so in a weird way, there was like a Mr. Miyagi paint the fence kind of preparation for this kind of stuff that I feel like I was like, oh, I know how to deal with this. Like, you just do what you can do and you let go of everything else and try to stay out of the future. And so that worked for a couple of weeks. You know,
and then I started using again.
And then yeah, no, it's like, and then the next thing you know, you're taking out the shovel and the lime and you're like, I'm killing everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, I mean, my wife and I did and I say my wife and I, let's be honest, it's really more my wife doing the homeschooling. We have a 1st and a 3rd grader, but like 2 days in, we were like, teachers' salaries should begin at $1 million a year.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it was just, it took a while, both for teachers to dial it in and for us to figure it out. My wife definitely takes the overwhelming lion's share of just being on top of all that stuff, and I'm super grateful for that. But like, after this, I'm going to go help my son with his math homework, and I feel a little guilty saying this. I actually kind of enjoy it in a way, and I think one of the reasons I enjoy it is because my wife does the lion's share of it. So I'm not entering the situation at DEFCON 5. But as you guys may or may not know, I really like to cook, and I've been eating like I'm going to the chair. I like every day just begin like 9:30 in the morning. I'm like, what do you want for dinner tonight? I should start defrosting something. I'm making stuff I've never made before. Like, I'm into any project that's going to take me 2.5 hours, whatever. I'm just trying to kill the day. So I've cleaned out the garage 2 or 3 times, you know?
Have you gained weight?
Yeah, I'm not egregious. I've probably gained 5 pounds, but
how can you be eating like you're going to the chair and only have gained 5 pounds? If I were doing that, because I've had to be like really rigorous, because otherwise I'll gain like 40 pounds in a week. I've
made homemade donuts. Like, I ordered yeast, you know?
I'm surprised you found it. It's hard to find right now.
I've been making, I've made homemade French fries. A couple of times I've made like just projects. Like, my wife was like, I could really go for coconut shrimp. And I was like, I bet I could figure out how to do that. Like, I'll just, I don't know. If you're somebody that cooks and enjoys it, odds are you have like 4 or 5, or maybe if you cook a lot, 8 to 10 like regular dishes that you make, and you just cycle through those. And lately I've just been like, let me make stuff I've never made before, you know? And I find it kind of meditative. I put on AirPods and throw on a podcast and just like disappear into a recipe. I made Nutella banana bread. You know, I made a homemade carrot cake with cream cheese icing. Like, I'm like, what every day is just a challenge of how can I get more calories into my face?
Now, all right, let's talk about the kids, because you're on Childish. Do you
I thought that was just because I am emotionally like an adolescent.
That's right. Well, I mean, that is kind of the theme of the show is, you know, and our theme song talks about what am I doing? I still feel like I'm a kid. Do you feel, because I have teenagers and I'm feeling like actually more connected to them and more intimacy with them. Do you feel that, or do you feel overwhelmed and like you need space?
No, I think I really actually am enjoying the duration of the family time, and I guess intensity of it. If you had said to me, you're gonna take a bunch of weeks to lay around your house in sweatpants and watch TV and do nothing and not see people, I'd be like, that is a dream come true. So on the surface, it seems great, until you realize that this is sort of like chain gang family time. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it starts to get intense because you gotta, you know, there are days where your stress level is okay, but other people's aren't. You know what I mean? And it sort of mutes the experience. Like it's just like Lord of the Flies passing the conch of who's having a meltdown in that moment, and then that kind of spills over onto everybody. But, you know, like my son and I, right before this, it was like, Daddy's doing a podcast, then I'm going to help you with your math homework. And he goes, and then we should play Nintendo Switch for a while. And I was like, you are right. You know, I mean, my daughter is 6. She's an apex predator in terms of being adorable. Like she's just peaking right now. And my son is like my mini me. And, you know, we have a little Pop-A-Shot game in the backyard, and I get to go out and have him just absolutely humiliate me in this game.
Yeah.
Like it's pathetic. I mean, he will double up my score, and I can just look at him like, I had 8 years of kicking your ass. It's all downhill from here.
I know it is weird when your kids get older, and Alison, you haven't been through this yet, but when your kids start to get better at you at anything, it is really existential. And it's like, I was thinking yesterday about how many things, my son's 19, and how many things he's better than me at that we used to, you know, like one-on-one basketball. I let him win for 15 years. And now all of a sudden, like, it's not even a contest anymore.
Right.
You know, he does these workouts, and I try to follow him because he's like a real fitness nut to the point where you wonder, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, did I beat you? Did we have a did?
What are you running from?
What are you running from? Did Aaron's brother come in and diddle you or something? So I try to keep up with him, and I can't. He just destroys me. And then you know, knowledge about so many things.
I actually got corrected by a child, not mine. Back in the day, Elliot and I were at like Chipotle or something, and he pointed to the fire extinguisher on the wall, and he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Oh, that's a fire hydrant." And then this other 3-year-old in line said, "No, it's a fire extinguisher." I was like, "The kid got me. He's right."
Yeah, right.
When it shifted to you letting him win, was that like, can you talk about that transition?
It was, I mean, so if we go out to the park, right? He's 9. So if we go out to the park, I can dominate him just physically because I'm bigger and stronger. But when it comes to like shooting on this game, first of all, here's how old I am. You have to, because I'm so tall, I have to bend over to pick up the balls. and then stand back up and shoot and then bend over. I get 3 rounds in and my lower back hurts so bad that I now pull up a chair and sit next to him. That's where I am now in my inevitable progression into osteoporosis. So, but like his shooting form, first of all, he's just so fast. Like he's shooting so many more shots than I am, but the rims are so tight and he's just like lofting these floaters, don't even touch the rim. It's embarrassing. Like we'll play a round that's 45 seconds and I'm like, dude, my high score, was 48 or whatever. And he's like, I got 126.
Yeah, no, you got to start That's the thing I did early on is you got to get in his head. Because there's 2 battles going on. And one is the physical ability to put the ball in the hoop. The other one is you have built the hard drive. You know where the glitches are. You know where you can get to them. And you gotta, and if they're not there, put new ones in.
Well, that's the thing. Really, the only thing I have left now is just being so much bigger than him. And this is me to my like 54-pound 9-year-old. This is as close as I get to feeling like the mountain on Game of Thrones. Like this is as close as I'm ever going to get to running the yard on Pelican Bay. So I just take every opportunity I can to remind him that like, sure, you can beat me at this game, but I could pull your head off your shoulders.
Well, if you're going to use the prison motif, it's a matter of time until he gets a little bigger and then he walks in and just punches you in the face as hard as he can. In front of the rest of the family.
People comment.
Give me your cigarettes.
Yeah, right.
People say listening to us makes them happy they don't have kids. Some people say that. And I don't see what they're talking about. Do you guys want to do some news stories?
Yes.
Let's do some news.
Let's do it. All right. There's a little thing we listen to.
Time for the news.
All right. So, Greg, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Hot off the presses, this is from the University of Washington. They're saying that parentees, and this is the way you talk to your kids, like when they're little. They call it parentees. I mean, basically like baby talk. And they've looked all over the world at everybody's different languages, and they found that it's unbelievably helpful when you speak. It's embarrassing and you look like a fucking asshole. Like you see grown people at the playground and they're going, and did the baby want to and do it? And you just think, Jesus Christ, I will never be that parent. Well, guess what? You should be that parent. If they found that in a 2018 study that of 6-month-old infants, they tracked them and they produced twice as many words by age 14 months than the ones that were not doing it.
That's so interesting. So
Really?
Do you think there's something there must be something instinctual about our urge to sound moronic, right?
Well, I always wonder if we're working down towards them or if they're working up towards us.
It's like you're meeting them on their terms, right?
Yeah.
Like you're making them feel a sense of parity. With a T, you know what I mean? Where they feel like they're reasonably equal to you, and I think there's something to like playing up to the level of competition, right? Like you're trying to reach them at a level where they feel like, okay, I'm starting to get this, and maybe if I just try a little harder, I'll be on their level.
Yeah, well, it says also that it works because it's a social hook for the baby brain. It's like a high pitch and slower tempo are socially engaging and invite the baby to respond. So
this is like Scientology, where they match your energy.
That's right.
You know what I mean? That's basically we're helping children get clear.
Yes, and I'm
mirroring.
videotaping them when they fuck up so I can use it against them when they try to leave the family.
That's all you need to do.
All right, I have a less happy story. So this is from Huffington Post, and it is titled, "The Childcare Industry is About to Collapse. There's no bailout coming." And it's basically just about how expensive it is to keep a childcare facility going and the thin margins that they have and like what's happening to them and what the forecast is like for them right now. So according to one estimate, half of licensed operators won't make it through the pandemic. Another survey found that only 11% of childcare providers believe they can survive indefinitely without help. Surviving indefinitely without help is...
Basically, that
cool
means
if you
it's
can.
not your revenue source, right? Like
Right.
that's something you do on the side. This is like most people. Greg, your kids are a little older, but we had our kids signed up for camp all summer, and we started, reaching out to people and going, "Hey, why don't you return that camp money?"
We're not getting any of our money back.
And some, we got a lot of people would be. Wasn't until we reached out to them and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, sure." And we were like, "So you were never gonna you're just waiting for people to ask?" And some people gave us that or you could just let it ride and we'll apply it to next summer. And my wife and I were like, when you've declared Chapter 11 and live in Portland? We're not, no, give me the money now.
If you're living in Portland, can I still send my kids up to you for the summer?
Yeah, on your dime, you know what I mean? Are you going to send a private plane for them because we're all still in quarantine? So, but I've thought about that. We have friends I have a friend that's in fact, one of her babysitters is director of a preschool. And she was, how are anyone, not just childcare, but who's going to pay $48,000 for a private college so that your kids can then take classes online beginning in August or September? Really?
Oh, yeah. Is that what you guys are doing?
Yeah, our kid, my son is... he's going to DePaul, and the classes are online, but the tuition, he's not paying room and board, obviously, so there's that break, but you're still paying full tuition. And so if they say that they're not coming to school in the fall, and they've been kind of nebulous about actually announcing that yet, but, the California schools have all announced it, all the UC schools.
It's not happening.
It's not happening. No school in the fall. So most colleges will probably follow suit. We looked at him going to, Santa Monica College, which is apparently the #1 community college in the country. He can take the same classes for a 20th of the price, and
Right.
and transfer those credits over. So he may end up doing that. But then you feel like, I want to support the school. They're counting on that revenue. So I don't know what's the right play. I don't know.
That falls under, in my eyes, not your problem.
Yeah.
Because we have friends that our kids go to a public school that's one of the top public elementary schools in LA County. But we have friends whose kids go to private elementary school, which is exorbitant, can be like $40,000 a year per kid. And my wife and I were talking, we're like, who's going to pay $80,000 to send your kid to third or fourth grade for two kids to get essentially, part of the appeal to me of private school at that early age is the environment and the interaction. So if you're just talking about the curriculum and there isn't that big a difference, why would you not to pull your kid out of that and enroll them in a public elementary school?
Not to mention, the upside for a lot of people is, you mean I'm not going to be seeing LeBron James in the parking lot picking up his kid?
Right.
Fuck this.
Right.
Well, so my kids go to a sort of a preschool that has celeb kids, and I did because we were doing some Zoom class, there's a Zoom curriculum. I got to see into some famous people's homes. So that's definitely worth all the money.
Oh, that's not bad.
But then
Yeah.
some people used those Zoom backgrounds, and I'm like, hey, I'm not paying all this money to
Right.
see you in front of a spaceship.
Yeah. Plus,
wanna
it's
see the house.
embarrassing when you have to ask the administrator to allow you to record the Zoom session so that you can
Right.
show your friends and your family.
You
Yeah,
know,
right.
At the beginning, I definitely signed on to this idea of anyone that you were paying before, if you can now they're out of work, if you can continue to pay them, you should. We're still, and we're still paying our nanny, and I intend to continue doing. However, it was one thing when it seemed like it was going to last for a little while, but now that it's indefinite, I'm like, okay, so when do I stop just paying for nothing? That makes me sound like, I'm sure someone's going to think I'm an asshole, but it's like a legitimate question. Everyone's finances are fucked right now.
It's tough. And, the online thing is really, your kids are zoned out. I mean, it's like
Elliot won't do it anymore.
Therapy, but I know people that go to therapy and they say it's very hard to get a lot out of it. Do either of you guys do therapy online?
I do. I love my therapist. I do feel like I'm getting something out of it. However, I oftentimes will hear the keyboard clacking while we're talking. And I'm like, bitch, first of all, I hope you're not watching this. Second of all, I hope you're just taking notes on our session. What are you doing?
Right.
You better not be updating your Facebook.
Right. She's refreshing her Amazon cart.
It's hard to get delivery windows. I get it.
What if she's mockingly writing about you on Twitter? You should be following her Twitter feed during the session.
Yeah. Like you look at her Twitter feed and it's just posts like DIS, like dis bitch. You know what I mean? You're like,
she's live streaming you.
I mean,
can you believe this fucking psychopath?
I think here's the thing about the people who are working for you, and because we've had the same question. We paid. We have a housekeeper that only comes twice a month. She comes every other week, and we paid her for a period of time, and then we just decided, like, hey, our revenue stream has stopped. I will pay you when you're allowed to come again. I mean, there's a certain. And I know what you mean. Like, I don't mean to be heartless, but I think you get to a point where it's like you do what you reach a threshold where it is no longer comfortable for you.
Right.
And then I think that's a personal threshold and nobody else can tell you when to make that. There are some people who are like, hey, it's a luxury for me to have this person. I can't afford to be paying for it when I'm not receiving it. And then there are people who have the comfort to be able to say, I'm going to do it ad nauseum because this is the value of this person to me, and everybody has to draw that line individually.
Yeah.
So tell me about your therapy online. How is that working?
I had it today, actually. I mean, I think the issue for quarantine, and this kind of gets back to your question of like, how are you getting along and with your kids and all that stuff, is this is a super compressed time. It's hard to let air out of your experience, whether you are talking about your marriage or your children or just your own thoughts and feelings about quarantine and the future and career and all that kind of stuff. So you don't have the normal interruptions and shift of focus where your point of view is on other things to be able to allow you the perspective change of returning to that subject and going,
right.
Oh, it all looks and feels a little differently to me now.
Right.
It is, it's a little bit like water torture where it's just drip after drip after drip. And even though every individual instance of something isn't a big deal in and of itself, it's the repetition, the monotony, and the inevitability of it continuing that starts to make it feel like you're going to have an anxiety attack. And that's, I mean, I don't know if that's kind of a complicated thought to verbalize, but I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, you're not allowed to go out and see your friends and have a date night and see a movie and run errands and like just turn your attention to something else to let a little air out of the tires. And I think that's true of everybody. It's true of my kids. It's true of my wife. It's true of me. And so that's sort of my focus in therapy, is like just getting a lot of stuff out that I'd rather say it to an independent third party than in a game time simulation in my house, because I don't need to be spreading lighter fluid all over and flicking matches.
Yeah, right. Well, it must be difficult because when you go to therapy, you're usually kind of looking back. Like when I used to go to therapy, on the way over there or an hour before, I would start thinking about what were the things that came up this week that I need to talk about. What were the challenges to my to my calm, and what were what brought things up for me, and then you bring it into the room, and that takes you through the hour. But you're not doing anything new. So the only thing you can do in therapy now is really go deep. I mean, in a way, it must force you to do some more like structural work. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just go a little more granular in terms of communication dynamics and choices that you make and kind of how could I have handled this differently or what's a better way to communicate in this situation. I mean, it is, we've all got this sort of, feeling of, and it hits us at different times of like, is this ever going to end? Are we doing this for, it started with like, we're just going to sprint for, maybe a month or so. And then it's like, the summer, huh? And then, now you start going like, wait, are we doing this for a couple of years? And then I started going like, hold on, if having antibodies doesn't make you immune from getting it again, how can they even come up with a vaccine?
Daniel
And,
casually mentioned that a few weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
But if I was reading something that was saying that, well, even before they are able to come up with a vaccine, whether they're able to come up with one, they could come up with something that sort of would function like Tamiflu functions for the flu. So there are other medications that could manage it and make it better.
Let me just say this, because I feel like this is maybe a more articulate way to answer Greg's question is, one of the things that I keep returning to is realizing that tension in quarantine is like nobody is denying you anything they're capable of giving you. They are doing the best they can with the tools they have under the circumstances. It is not personal, And if you can remember that this is not about you, it's about the situation we're all in, and not take it as this person is not doing this to you, they're just doing it. And that kind of takes a little bit of the sting out of it. And then I find a way to like plug into being more empathetic and looking at how I can help as opposed to, what your fucking problem is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's really like...
that's a nice thought. I like that. It's that everyone's trying their hardest. Sometimes I have that thought. When you get really pissed off at somebody who's cutting you off in traffic or a shitty service employee, you just think that. And, and it's really, our world has gotten so partisan. And then on another level now, people are about, the people that are about social distancing and the ones that are about liberty and all these conflicts that are coming up. And you lose what causes anxiety to me is when you stop remembering it's us, it's all of us, it's we. And when you remember that, it's very calming.
Yeah. And I, if I can forego the instinct to point out error in somebody else, and then whether it's my kids, whether it's my wife, even my fucking dog, and then look to like engage with them in a way that is kind of gives them what they need, right? Like if somebody's, like my wife's stressing about something that I did or didn't do or needing help with it, if I can get past well, what about all the shit I do, and go right to what is it you need from me right now? What do you need? How can I give you what you need? If you just need to feel like I'm sensitive to your situation, I see you, I value you, and I want to help, and my default position is on your side. Immediately her blood pressure comes down. If my son is stressed out because he's done 5 hours of Zoom and he's just starting to freak, and I'm able to look past his behavior in the moment and go, all right, why don't we take a break? Let's go outside and let's play a game for a little while, and let's take 20 minutes and then we'll go back. If you allow another person to feel heard and their feelings to be validated, they're like, all right.
Yeah,
know?
it totally
Like, then
takes
it's-
the impulse to keep fighting. It makes it go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me once, and I've never forgotten this, you can't fight someone who doesn't fight back. So
Yeah.
if you can resist that temptation to throw a punch in return and then instead do something helpful, that energy has nowhere to go. They got to they just let go of it.
Speaking of things we need to let go of, this is a terrible segue. I was trying to make it work, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
But do you guys want to do highs and lows?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Greg, would you like to start?
Yeah, mine's a pretty simple one. God bless Amazon. They're not always that fast these days with non-essential items, but like I said, my son is working out like a lunatic, and I'm with him, and it really helps. And one thing we thought would blow off a lot of steam was a heavy bag. So they delivered it, and I don't know how they got it to the house. It's like 100 pounds. It took two of us to carry it in and to hang it up on off the back of a trellis in the back. And man, I'm beating the shit out of that thing, and it feels so good. And all you hear out back, it sounds like there's a fight in the alley all day, because my son just straps up and he just goes. It's like it's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
your high. My high. So since we last talked, it was Mother's Day and my birthday. Mother's Day was a Sunday. My birthday was Monday. And I just had I had no expectations. I know that all bets are kind of off right now. Maybe in the past, Daniel would have been like, let me take him for the day. And that's not really a possibility either right now. So he asked what I wanted. And I said, I really, there's nothing I want, and I ended up having a couple really good days, and, he had a couple little things planned. They made me a card, and I was able to be in the moment and appreciate everything, which is really growth for me because usually on my, not Mother's Day so much, but on my birthday, I turn into a child, and there's 1,000 reasons why, but I really regress usually. And something upsets me, and then I can't get out of my bad mood, and I'm aware that I am, acting like a child, and that makes it worse. And none of that happened. I just was able to have a very pleasant couple of days. So that is my high.
Did you get flowers?
I got flowers from my mom, actually.
Nice.
And yeah, it was really nice. My mom sent me flowers, and Daniel actually did end up. So I took the kids in the morning, because we go back and forth about the mornings for Mother's Day. And then he came out at 11, and he's like, you know what? I can take him for the rest of the day. So despite what I said earlier, he did do that. And then I took this humongous, super decadent nap, and I woke up in the best mood, which then makes me think, am I just tired? Is that why I'm not always in a great mood? Because getting that nap in, I was coasting after that. I was elated.
Was there self-love during the nap?
No, there hasn't been self-love. There hasn't been. Look, I'm not part of a self or a couple baby boom. I'm just going to say that. We've been talking about if there's going to be a baby boom or not. Anyway, John Henson, what was your high?
I would say my high is, there's a variety of choices, but I'm going to go with something intimate. The benefits of a matinee. I find that because my wife and I are so exhausted at the end of the day, that after put down, we put on something on the television, and within half an hour, I am asleep with my mouth open, and I'm out cold. So we've been relying on a 4 o'clock kind of pre-dinner. Let's put on a little something for the kids. Mommy and Daddy are going to take a nap, and then we're going to barricade ourselves in the bedroom. And I will just say, there is not a lot in life that doesn't diminish in terms of stress if you're getting laid regularly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting laid is it just makes everything a little bit more tolerable. There's just a quicker kind of what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like everything just seems a little less. Now, Allison, I can see you thinking.
This makes me feel guilty. Because I just feel guilty.
Okay, you don't. This isn't about guilt. Statistics have proven this, that couples say that are not getting along, that have made a commitment to schedule being physical.
Oh, wow.
Get along better after, say, a period of time of doing that, a couple of weeks, a month, or whatever.
Do you guys schedule it?
No. But I'm just saying, like, in other words, you got to generate momentum.
I know.
And it is a proven fact that the more you fuck, the more you want to fuck. So sometimes you just have to, like, make it happen for a period of time before you're like, this is my little mint on my pillow, you know what I mean? And it is an endorphin rush and a chemical release of stress.
Question. So you put something on the television. Do you have a 2-story house? Like, how far away is your bedroom from? Because both Greg and I have the situation where there's nowhere to retreat to really in the house.
Then put on some music, like drown it out. I mean, it's, you know, Greg's kids are old enough to figure it out, but then they're old enough to be able to deal with it, right? I mean, your kids are 1 and 3. They're not going to know what's going on.
No, I know.
Do your kids take a nap? Do your kids take a nap?
Not Elliot. I will say the most recent time there was intimacy, I was like, wow, I'm able to like be okay with this. I'm not super worried about, I mean, the kids had already gone to sleep, but in the past, I almost felt like I was neglecting them by being not, available to like jump up at any moment.
I don't know. I think you gotta take care of yourself to be able to take care of other people. This is like
an airplane. First, put on your own oxygen mask.
Put on your own oxygen mask. Yeah. And I will say, and this is not directed at you, but I think my experience has been, if you are not regularly connecting in an intimate way, and it doesn't have to be sex, but if you're not having that
nice,
experience,
warm hug.
If you're not having that experience, then life just drifts into, we are roommates trudging through drudgery and eating a giant life shit sandwich together. Like it, like you gotta have a biscuit at the end of the day. There needs to, not every day. I'm just saying you gotta have.
No, I know. I'm wondering everything. I'm wondering how much more this is true for men than women. Because what you're saying, I'm sure Daniel would agree with. And like I said, I'm just feeling guilty. But, when you have little kids, it's tough.
Of course, I get it. I mean, my kids were there, but it's, I guess what I'm saying is I would encourage you to cultivate it as opposed to going, well, it doesn't come naturally to me and therefore it doesn't come naturally.
Yes, I know. Okay, let's do some lows.
Funny you should say it, Allison. My low was our kids have been home 24/7 for 2 months. My daughter's bedroom is next to our bedroom. I don't know why we planned it that way. And she will say to us, when you guys are going to bed, can you talk quieter because I can hear everything in your room? So
thank God she like sounded that alarm.
Right. So our MO for the last, 15 years has been, like you said, little matinee. I don't work during the day. She hasn't had a day job with raising the kids. And so we've had 6 hours a day to choose from. And that's always been the time. And now it's not the time. And so we've been really having to sneak our battles. It's a battle. and so yesterday, Owen went out on a bike ride with a friend of his. And then JoJo was going to go skateboarding with her friends. So he leaves. Half hour later, she gets her skateboard. She leaves. And I mean, that front gate didn't close. And I was fucking naked on the bed. And then she came in and she got it. And so we're on the bed and we're naked. And I look good. And I begin to prepare her for the event. And I till the soil. I till the soil.
Sure. Lay the groundwork.
She's being groomed.
Set the table.
And as I begin to mount, we hear from the hallway, Mom, I forgot my sweater.
Oh, no. See, this is
Like-
what I'm afraid of.
Like fucking rolling off the bed as fast as we can because the door looks into the bed. Don't think we were seen, but it was so obvious. And we were standing on the other side of the room.
So wait,
naked,
did you
waiting.
not shut the door?
We didn't shut the door. We didn't think anyone would be home for a couple hours. I know.
That's unforced error, man. That's E6
That's
right there.
unforced. But where is the spontaneity? The truth is, we usually work around during the day. We work our way around the house. We have a kind of a game where we try to never do it in the same room twice.
Sure.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
You've lived there for a
you
long
work it
time.
around.
All right.
And so we almost like my first thought was let's get this going out in the open, free range. And no, we made it a home game. But we didn't close the door. You're right. It was a rookie move.
Yeah.
And then she just kept talking in a nervous way the whole time, and then she left. But like you said, John.
Wait, your daughter kept
she's-
talking in a nervous way, or your wife?
Yeah, from the other room. She was talking to us like, yeah, just getting my sweat. I'm going to head back, But like you said, John.
I'm home, like that.
And she's old enough to handle it, I think, at this point. She's 16. She's got to know.
No one wants to think about their parents having sex. It's
I
really
know.
gross.
I know.
Go ahead.
I
That
was
was
gonna
my
say Milo. Everything's fine, but Elliot hit his head, and we had to take him to urgent care.
Oh,
He
boy.
and Daniel have a game they play in the backyard that involves a ball and running around. It's unlike any other sport. I'm not going to go into the details of it. But anyway,
Is it Elliot holds the ball and then Daniel beats him with a bat until he drops it?
what happens is Elliot kicks the ball to Daniel, and then Daniel kicks the ball back to Elliot, and then when the ball gets close to Elliot, Elliot takes off and starts running, and then Daniel runs and catches him and like picks him up and pulls him in the air, tickles him or whatever.
Yeah.
So I still don't quite understand what happened. I was in the office at my computer, and I heard what I thought was uproarious laughter. And then, a second passed, and I'm like, oh my God, that's not laughter. That's Elliot wailing. And so Daniel comes running in, and he's holding him. And I didn't even find out what had happened for the longest time because Daniel was like just tending to Elliot, who's just, inconsolable, crying, like holding his ear. And anyway, somehow Elliot slipped, hit his head on, there's like a little sort of almost like a curb that goes around my studio on one side, and hit his head on that. So Daniel called the pediatrician, who didn't seem that worried, but said, just because so much can happen when you hit your head.
Was there a cut or a bump?
No, we didn't see anything back there. But he was holding his ear, and she was a little bit worried about him holding his ear. So take him in. So we have been so strict about lockdown, and we ended up taking him to an urgent care, which she thought would be safer than an emergency room. The doctor there did not see anything concerning, but did say, keep an eye on sluggishness, throwing up, him being unresponsive,
Right.
dizziness.
Needing to sleep, right? Going to sleep.
Actually, he fell asleep in the car on the way there, and I was trying to keep him up. And then I Googled, and that's not a concern anymore.
Oh, okay.
But she did want us to try to wake him up every 4 hours, just to make sure that he can still be roused. So, and also the thing about hurting your ear from a head trauma, she said that she usually, this stunned me. She usually only sees that in a situation where kids are car surfing. Did you know that people still do that?
I have TikTok. Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Okay. I thought that was like a thing of the past, but apparently she said a few weeks ago she was in the emergency room and that had happened. So anyway, I barely slept that night because I just, I became so calm when Daniel was so worried, and then it all kind of hit me that night. So I barely slept. He's totally fine though. Everything's okay. But then I began to worry, like, well, she mentioned that she was in the emergency room. Did we just expose ourselves, et cetera? But now enough time has passed. I think we're okay. But that was my low. John Henson, what was your low?
All right, that's always scary.
Yeah.
Okay. My low in general on lockdown, just so you guys don't think I'm trying to pass myself off as some Zen master.
Who fucks a lot?
Yeah, no. I'm just a dude who likes to get laid occasionally. And
I think
and
we
then-
get the name
and
of your
then-
new
and then
name of your
brag
new
about it.
memoir,
Yeah.
Zen Master Who Fucks a Lot.
My wife and I have bikes. My kids needed new bikes. I ordered them. Took like 11 hours to put them all together. And these are like bigger bikes, and so we've been biking with our kids. My wife grew up biking with her family, like let's all go for a bike ride. And that's a very important thing for her to feel like the kids have a sense of normalcy. It reminds her of her childhood. She finds it very kind of Norman Rockwell. I fucking hate it. I find it super stressful because when you're biking with a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, they're fucking incapable of like staying in a line and not swerving into each other's paths or like stopping short in front of you. And there's probably 3 to 5 times during a 20 or 30 minute bike ride that you go like like it's like don't like get on the right side of the street, don't do that, that's a stop sign, and also then there is the equivalent reaction when you have to bark at them, where somebody gets angry and then their kids are arguing, and it's like a rolling family fight now in the middle of the neighborhood with fucking masks on in the valley when it's like 89 degrees. And
At least you have a mask so people don't know that it's you, minor celebrity John Henson, yelling at his children.
So I just find it super stress inducing. It is absolutely ratchets on my nerves. And on Mother's Day, my wife was like, I want to go for a bike ride. And of course, anything she asked for, sure, absolutely. We're biking back from a long bike ride, and we get to a street where we would normally go straight because to the right is a big hill. It's a big hill. It's not a long hill, but it's fucking steep. And my wife goes, you guys want to go down the big hill? And my kids are like, yeah. And I immediately started going, we should not do this. This is a bad idea. And my wife's like, it'll be fine. They know what they're doing. And like takes off down the hill and is gone. And the hill like goes down and then immediately banks 90 degrees to the left. And my daughter's bike is still one of those like you have to pedal backwards to brake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no handbrakes.
No handbrakes, yeah.
And she's the hill starts right at where you turn on the street. So she's still at the phase where to get going, she has to like push her bike forward and then give her time to get her feet on the brakes.
Oh, God.
And she pushes the bike forward. She's 6. And now it's like careen. It's like the first hill on a roller coaster where she's starting to go fast and she panics and tries to put her feet down to stop herself, but her little feet barely touch the ground. And it's just the ship has sailed now. And I'm just watching this kid screaming my name, careening down this hill. Never got her feet on the pedals.
Nothing
it was
you
all
can do.
Nothing. I was the most powerless feeling in the world. And in those moments where my daughter was careening to her demise, I wanted to murder my wife. I was like, this was a horrible decision and you didn't listen to me and I blame you. And my daughter went down the hill and like tried to make the left and couldn't. Thank God there was one of those like little handicap dips at the corner of the street where the sidewalk dips to meet the street. And she went up onto that and sailed into a retaining wall.
Oh, God.
It could have been so much worse. She fell off and, banged her upper thigh and fell down and was crying and everything was fine. But it was one of the most like I'm watching a train wreck. I can't help. I'm right there. She's screaming my name and something terrible is going to happen. And I did not handle it well. And I quickly covered and went into like, could have been much worse. We got really lucky. She could have gone face first into that retaining wall. We could be picking teeth out of her throat right now. Everything's fine. I'll go get the car. Happy Mother's Day. But it took a little. It was a scar on Mother's Day.
Well, can I just take the other side of this for a second? This was a great day for your family. Our kids are so fucking sheltered. When we were kids, how many times did you go barreling down a hill on a bicycle and fly into a retaining wall? How many times did you get bitten in the leg by a German Shepherd while you were trespassing somewhere? I mean, they need this shit. They don't get it enough.
I literally told this story of when I was about my daughter's age and I was sitting on the back of a bike going down a big hill and a dog cut in front and I went sailing over the handlebars, scraped my face on the sidewalk, big egg on my head, bleeding, went home. Half an hour later, I was outside playing kick the can, looking like the Elephant Man.
Right. No, I think your wife's instinct was right. Sometimes you got to go down that hill.
Listen, my wife's instinct is always right. I want to go on the record and say that. John Anderson, my old co-host on Wipeout, gave me words to live by when I told him I was getting married. We were engaged, and he goes, let me give you a piece of advice. Get up every morning, tell your wife you love her. Get in bed every night, tell her you're sorry. The reasons aren't important. She will fill in the details.
John Henson, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
Such a pleasure to hang with you, brother, always.
Love you dearly.
Love you too, man.
Tell everyone where to find you. Plug anything you'd like to plug.
Including your wife around 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Let me tell you something. I got about 6 minutes till go o'clock. It is, you can find me at John_Henson at Twitter.com, even though I'm going to be forthcoming and say it is pretty much all righteous indignation politically for me on Twitter, but that's where you can find me.
Right. And Greg, what about you?
You can find me. Well, first, I want to plug my my podcast with Mike Gibbons, John Henson, your old friend. We do a podcast on Sundays called Sunday Papers. It started off on Fitzdog Radio, but it has launched and now has its own site. So if you want to listen to it, don't go to Fitzdog Radio. You got to search for Sunday Papers and check that out.
Is it news related?
Yeah, we read the paper every Sunday. We go through each section: entertainment, sports, business. And we have little sound effects for each section, and then we do jokes about it, and it's fun. It's like
I'm your Huckleberry. I'll tune in for that.
All right, beautiful.
And listen to my podcast, Alison Rosen is Your New Best Friend, comes out Monday and Thursday. John Henson has been a guest on both the Monday and the Thursday show. You told a harrowing story about being stuck in a Bahamian crack house.
That's right.
It was the chills.
Almost being sexually assaulted in a Bahamian crack house.
That's right.
As you do when you're on vacation.
Right.
Well, and also when you're a Zen master who fucks a lot, you end up in those situations.
So there's a lot of people to get to.
And follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Alison Rosen. Follow Childish Pod on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Childish Pod. Go to our website, childishpod.com. If you like what you're hearing, download, subscribe, tell a friend. Keep those nice Apple podcast reviews coming, please. And of course, watch this video. You need to see our beautiful faces. YouTube.com/Alison Rosen is where the full Childish video will be. I think we've done it again, you guys.
We've done it again, Allison. We've done it, John, with your help.
Nailed it. Just nailed it.
Well, we'll see you guys on the other side. I'm Greg Fitzsimmons.
I'm Allison Rosen, and we are Childish.